Welcome to the special episode of the Backyard Horse Enthusiast. I'm your host, Kimber Ley, and today we're honored to feature a remarkable woman whose journey embodies resilience, healing, and the transformative power of horses. Hertha Lund is the founder of Four Horses for Wholeness, a sanctuary nestled in the heart of Montana, where she guides individuals through profound healing experiences using equine gestalt coaching. Hertha's path has been anything but ordinary, transitioning from a litigation attorney and journalist covering the halls of Congress to a master equine gestaltist and author. In her deeply moving memoir, Alchemy of Resilience, My Rugged Path to Wholeness, Hertha shares her journey from childhood trauma and a near-death experience to finding purpose and wholeness through her connection with horses and nature. Join us as we delve into Hertha's inspiring story, her unique approach to healing, and the wisdom she's gained along the way. This conversation promises to touch your heart and perhaps even guide you on your own path to wholeness. But before we dive into today's amazing interview with Hertha, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, High Level, the platform that's helping equine professionals and coaches automate and grow their businesses with ease. I've created a short 3-minute video that explains how I personally use High Level and why I love it. Plus, I'll show you how to get a free 14-day trial so you can try it out yourself. That video is coming up later in today's episode, so be sure to stick around. Now let's welcome Hertha Lund. Hey, Hertha, welcome to the Backyard Horse Enthusiast. So happy to have you join us today.
Well, I am very excited to be with you today on this beautiful morning, and thank you for inviting me, Kimber.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I read your book 2 years ago already on a flight home from Colorado, summit and graduation. And I was so taken by this book of yours. It's such a journey and such a relatable read as well. Um, that I shared the book. I have passed that book around with my name in it. Like, don't forget where you got it and please send it back when
Wow.
you're done, right? I even had an extra copy because of that. And so I am absolutely thrilled to dive into the questions that I have for you today. And I shall begin with asking you to take us back to the moment that you realized that it was time to leave the courtroom and pursue a different kind of calling.
Well, I have not really left the
Oh,
courtroom.
oh,
I am still doing both, and actually my test has been to marry the two sides of me together. And I will be, I think, changing course in probably 2 or 3 years. But I own the law practice, and so it's not something one can just walk away from.
great.
Um, I can tell you that it was 10 years ago that it, literally changed my life. And when I came back from dying and coming back, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, um, I didn't know if I would be able to practice law because it was so much in my, I think it's the right left brain, whatever. I get dyslexics on my brains, more in the analytical brain. And after dying and coming back, it's like I was totally in the other side. And to go back and forth would make me nauseous. So I think that for me and my personality type, practicing law and at the expense of not living in I'm a INFP, so an artist. Not living in that side of my brain was part of what caused the illness, as well as with the unprocessed pain. But it took everything I had to be able to go back, get back into that other side of my brain and practice. And when I would, after I'd been so sick, I'd come to work and it'd take me 10 or 15 minutes and I'd sit there and I'd be sick to my stomach. But I had some momentum at working hard and being a good lawyer that I would fall back into it. And now I say that I practice more with presence and kindness. And I'm still a bad, I'm still a badass lawyer, but
Yeah.
I practice with more integrity and consciousness. And the other day I was in court and I decided that I wasn't going to squabble. I wasn't going to fight it. You kind of get used to being on the muscle. And so I've learned how to defend my client and do a good job without necessarily getting into the fray. And that's been a whole sense of self-mastery and a learning exercise to figure out how to do that. And it goes back to horses. Think about when we're riding our horses. If we only use force, we're going to get in trouble all the time. It's the same way with even being a lawyer. Yes, I have to be good at being able to be powerful and strong and adept in the courtroom with words and with how I present myself. But only using force it gets the same problems.
Mhm.
If you use force, when I was a horseshoer and I used force, the horse might act up more. And so if I use force in the courtroom when it's not the correct tool, it could cause the client, the judge, the witness to come back so it's all up to me. It's like horsemanship is about self-mastery and knowing, how to bring together connection and coherence and bringing people together to, when I'm doing a jury trial, I'm trying to get the jury to understand the perspective and to see my client, through their view lens and make them whole and whatever the jury trial is. So yeah.
Wow. Oh, and listening to this, I can see where our Gestalt training with Melissa really comes into play.
Oh, life changing for me at multiple levels. First, it was my own healing, but
Hmm.
then being able to now implement it. First I had to figure out how to be able to coach it but to be it first and then to coach it. But now, literally, my whole life I feel is Gestalt.
100%. Yes. I can relate to that. Absolutely. Yeah, it is life-changing. Tell me, what was it about the equine gestalt coaching method that deeply resonated with you during your transition?
That's a big question also. So first, from my book that I was, my I had issues with my mom because my mom used force when she maybe didn't need to as a mom. And so I had my issues of having mother hunger from not having the nurturance, the guidance, and the protection that I needed. So I wasn't looking for a woman teacher. I mean, that was like not on my list, not looking for a lead mare. I mean, my way of not ever having to face that was I was in charge. And so my friend had an axe, her son had been killed by the police in front of her, and they wouldn't let her go to him to take care of him. And it was a horrible thing. And she was talking to me, and I helped her the best I could, and I loved her. And Melissa happened to be coming to June Falseth, who lives next door to me at Bonanza Creek Ranch. And we're married to cousins. And so I'd been to a retreat there by one of Melissa's students, Jamie, and that had been like 2 years before. So anyhow, they said we have somebody can't come. Do you want to come? And I was like, well, no, but my friend needs it. My friend. So I paid for my friend to go see Melissa, and so I got to check Melissa out, right? And during this, I decided that I trusted her, and my friend did a piece of work with Melissa, and that it was a beautiful piece of work and deeply moving. And that was the first time my friend had slept for 2.5 years since, yeah. And then after that, I decided that I wanted to work with Melissa. And Melissa gave me the choice. She said, well, you can work with me individually, or I've got this coaching program. And I felt into that. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want her just focusing on me individually. That'd be a little bit too much, triggering for me. And so I did the coaching program. I had no idea. And this was what made me, believes in something greater than us that leads us when we're following our hearts. I had no idea that I would love coaching so much. And when I coach, I access a part of how I exist in this form that I don't access any other way. I mean, I feel so integrated, so, present and available for whomever was with me I mean, I love being in that state of consciousness, and I had no idea that that's what I would find by facing my fears of asking for help to heal those parts of me that were still deeply wounded. Last week, I went to a grad course at Nancy DeSantos, the veterans. It was amazing. But as I was there, they talked about this ACEs test for, to test children to see what their trauma level is. And I kept track as she was going through it. My score was an 8. I mean, I had complex PTSD for most of my life. And so that's what I addressed working with Melissa in the program. But also, she had us do the values and all those different things. So it's almost like as we're looking inward and allowing the parts of us to come up that aren't whole, we're starting to see who we really are. I mean, to me, it was a beautiful, beautiful transition, transformative healing process for me. So,
Same. Yet again, another relatable conversation. Same. I didn't know what my values were. I didn't know who I was at all. So I, I'm sure you can relate to this as well. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but even if I never decided to coach, I will never be sorry for having embarked on that journey of receiving my certification in this work because, in all honesty, I wouldn't be interviewing you right now.
and in all honesty, I wouldn't be available to be interviewed, but for the program. I mean, it is I almost likened it to a a place for me to go and to unfold and to become, let go of things that were holding me back. I mean, it's like a transformational healing, a finishing school or something. It is a
Hmm.
safe place to come apart, to become, put back to part, packed together in my true identity.
Yes, indeed. Ah, you have experienced both high pressure legal environments and deeply emotional healing sessions. How have those two worlds shaped your coaching style?
Hmm. That's a very interesting question. My coaching style is I don't use, I don't hardly have any of my linear brain present. I mean, I am so in the other side of my being and just present. There's nothing that exists between, except for me, the client, the horses, and what's here and now. And I also, people do go very deep. That is kind of a signature. And the very first time I coached, the woman sat down and I said, "Well, what would you like to work on?" And she says, "I just don't know who I am." And the voice in my head said, "Well, that's a little over my pay grade." And I thought, wow. And so we did, I did, Melissa was there, so she helped me a little bit, but that was a really, I was like, I thought we were going to like deal with something like a bad day at work or a child, that's kind of an existential question. And so that's been my calling card is that I don't even get through a check-in hardly anymore where people will fall into their work. And so, but I love it because of going through what I've done in my life. I had, major trauma as a child. And so I used to find my mom threatening to commit suicide with a gun on her legs,
Oh gosh.
things like that. And so people can tell me, it's like there's not anything they tell me that really rocks my boat. And I can be right there with them. And I think the fact that in my consciousness, I'm a protector. I mean, as a lawyer, if I'm your lawyer, I will go to the nth of the end part of the world to protect you. And so I think that because I have that literally embodied, people feel safe, and it's like their soul feels like they're safe, and then I'm gonna, help the soul find its way.
Oh, yes.
So those two together, and when we're doing, in Gestalt, we sometimes have the parts or talk or and when we do mother hunger retreats, some of the women, I'm like, well, what would you tell your mom? And some of them can't yet. I mean, they go back to being the 4-year old, and at that level, they still can't talk to their mom. And so I let them try. But occasionally I will step up and I'll say, do you want some help? And then
Mm.
I would, I've heard how they talk and I might voice it, for them. And then they feel it's almost like I'm their advocate,
Mm.
in time and space, and that gives them a confidence, but they've never had anybody have their back like that. And so I think that's where the two roles get married together, is that I'm very earnest and I have a lot of passion, a lot of love, and to be able to step in and support the soul to come forward, to make steps towards wholeness.
Sure. Wow. To be able to give them a safe space. Like, I mean, exposing things that you've shut down for so long, and
Yeah.
that we know what that terror feels like. Just the thought of having that conversation, you go right into lizard brain, fight or flight, like you are physically ill and you need to get the heck out of Dodge.
Yes.
And,
And yeah, and it's not, I lived there for 50 years. So I understand, and I also think it matters, just like it was hard to run the 4 minute mile before that, guy from England, he finally did it. Then after that, it's became come easier. More people have been able to do that. I think when our nervous system says, "Oh my God, I can't, I'll die," and then you're sitting with somebody else who's done it, and your nervous system says, "Well, maybe I can. I think I can. I'm safe. I can." And that to me is there's no the embodiment part of the work, I think, is the most critical part to be able to help other people find their paths of healing. And that is something that Melissa taught us in the process of being there. And it's changed my life. And I love, love, love sharing that with others and see how it changes their lives. So,
yes, and your work as an attorney in doing your litigation and that, and having clients that, I mean, you authentically give them such a safe place to, because let's face it, you know, you're going to put somebody on the stand or whatever you're representing, you really don't want them to be in lizard brain the entire time and not able to think a coherent sentence or thought, or and oh my gosh. Wow. Hmm.
I absolutely am aware of presence as a balancing to help my clients and my witnesses, be present and think about it. It's not only not being in lizard brain, but who does the jury trust? They trust the people who are present and authentic.
True.
So,
Absolutely. They can sniff that out, the authenticity.
yep, just like my mare Mystic.
Yeah, yeah, those mares. It's why I love them, and it's like it's a love-hate connect, but I have always my entire life have always chosen mares to be the ones that I start under saddle, that I'm like, why? Because they demand that I show up fully, because if I'm not, they're gonna call me out on it and it's nothing but trouble, and I love that. I really do. I always say, like, you never get a dumbed down version of a mayor. They're just, nope. Mm-mm. Oh my gosh. Hertha, before we jump into the next part of your journey, I'd like to share a quick tool that's helped me grow my own coaching practice.
Awesome.
Hey, everybody, it's Kimber from the Backyard Horse Enthusiast, and I want to share something new that I'm exploring that's already making a big impact behind the scenes. Like many of you, I juggle content creation, coaching, and keeping things organized across multiple platforms, which can get overwhelming fast. That's why I'm now testing out a platform called High Level. It's an all in one system that brings together CRM, email automation, forms, booking calendars, and even funnels, all in one place. Now, I'm still getting to know the platform myself, but after talking directly with their team and even Zooming with Travis from High Level, I knew this wasn't just any tool. These folks believe in creators like us. So if you're curious, scan the QR code or use the affiliate link below to check it out. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but if you sign up through my link, it helps support my channel and the work that I do. If you've been looking for a better way to organize and grow your business, this might be your sign. And I'm excited to keep you posted as I learn and grow with High Level. Back. For those unfamiliar, how would you describe what happens in a typical equine gestalt session?
What happens? Wow. Well, at the end result is life as we've life as we know it is changed. And so what typically happens is somebody will come and they know that there's something that's not quite right. And so I will ask them to, feel into their body and let me know where that resides. And the reason I want them to feel it in their body is because the body speaks first. The body remembers all those things we know from all the current work about how important the body is, and that helps. It helped me stay in my body as having somebody who had complex PTSD. I was a master at disassociation, and that wasn't helpful to find wholeness because. And I also have discovered that the container of the body is very, very important to transformational healing. And so I want the person to be grounded. And then, by doing that, they'll usually they will start finding their answers. So it's like a path comes, they sit down, they talk, and as soon as they get grounded, they will then go into give me the information that I need to be able to help them, re-experience whatever is the stuck energy, whatever was a lightning strike and how it got stuck inside them, re-experience it. And at some point, I have 6 horses, and all of the horses are usually with me when I'm coaching, and I'll watch to see who wants to, work. And at some point, the person who is sitting with me and who's partnering with me for this process will also the horse will be put in with one of the horses. And I've seen some amazing things with my horse partners lately. Last weekend when I was in Santa Fe, I coached and it was with one of Nancy's horses, and that young horse hit it out of the park. That horse not only partnered with me, it led the process. And that's the most I've ever had a horse step up and lead. And they took action. I was like, okay, I'm with you. We'll do that next. So the horses are amazing. And because of how the horses show up, it's, they talk about how essential oils cross the blood-brain barrier. I think that horses somehow cross some type of barrier that we have in our brain or in our being that keeps us from allowing good, supportive, loving help in. And when the horses bring it, it's a 1,200-pound animal that is just truly honest, no judgment, and they hold space and they perform connection. And I've just seen amazing things happen when people are in their stuff authentically, and then the horse steps in. And so by the end of the process with the horse, you know, literally lives are changed. That is the most common feedback I get is that, my life is changed. I'm not the same anymore.
Wow, indeed. Well, you answered my next question, so we'll go on to the next. And what I would like to know, and I think our viewers would like to know, is what role has your own personal healing journey played in shaping the way that you now hold space for others?
Yes, it is. We are who we are, and it's a lot from our life experiences. And I grew up on a ranch in Montana in a real rugged terrain, the breaks around the Missouri River breaks. And that was when living in the house was kind of hard. My mom had unprocessed trauma from her childhood, and she passed it on to me. I was the oldest girl, and then also was sexually abused by a neighbor teenage neighbor boy when I was 5. So I had two twin trauma strikes, and very early I decided I was never going to let anybody hurt me. And I was always, pretty sweet, but tougher than nails. And I had horses, and I loved my horses, and I have a twin brother. So usually when you grow up on a ranch, you have gentle horses and you kind of get staggered through them. Well, if you have twins, then that throws the whole thing off because you don't have two gentle horses. So I got moved off the gentle horse to Little Red, who was green broke. And but I rode him bareback all over our ranch, and there was a big pasture around our house, probably 5 acres, and I could go wherever I wanted in there. And so my way of getting away from my mom and being safe was being out on my horse bareback, probably in shorts and boots. It was pretty wild. And I also started talking to God, very natural, because that was my other way that I found to be safe. So to me, horses and being outside and talking to God were all part of the same. It was like a slice of heaven, even though the home life was hard. And so later on, when I started looking for wholeness, I'd been away from horses for at least a decade because of pursuing my legal degree, and I covered Congress as a journalist in DC, and then I clerked for the Chief Judge of the United States Court of Federal Claims in DC. So I couldn't, we lost our ranch when I was in college, so I worked to put myself through school, and I didn't have enough money to have a horse. And so I'd been without horses. And I got a horse back, I think about the time I was 40. But that they were always very natural to my healing. And when I got back one of the horses that I had raised, he was my four his mom was my 4-H horse, and he came back into my life, and so Buddy and I immediately started bonding with Buddy, and it started my healing path. And in fact, Buddy was at the first retreat that I went to, and it's almost like he lived until he was 33. He lived until he saw me pretty, well grounded in working with horses to help people heal. And so listening to Melissa talk, and now, horses, were waiting for us to allow them to help us heal. That just was, I'm like, where has this been all my life? I mean, this is perfect for me. And Melissa sometimes teased me and said I'm kind of like a horse. And as a child, I didn't look to people for nurturance. I watched how a mare took care of coals.
Oh my
So
God.
they were that whole, there was so much of my whole framework of understanding life was formed from being with the horses and watching the horses. So,
Yes. Whoa. Whoa. And you just took me right back to childhood as well. It was the
wow.
same thing.
Oh
I
my.
know I survived it because of all the ponies I had as a child.
Yeah.
Horses were my dad's business. And I was, surviving a lot of trauma and bad stuff, but
Mhm.
I had my pony, had my
Yeah.
pony, and I felt that connection so early on. And I know that was a saving grace.
Mhm. Yeah, and you
True.
talk to your pony,
All the time. That was my confidant. Are you kidding?
right?
I didn't share that stuff with siblings. It was my pony knew everything.
Right. And literally, we now literally did know
They,
everything.
oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like I know I have a love for my Dakota that is like it's palpable. It truly like I feel when I drive onto the property because I don't have them in the backyard anymore, but my heart goes and I feel his too. I just feel that like and I can't walk into I gotta run out to him because he runs to the gate and I gotta kiss his muzzle. He demands it, and then I gotta blow raspberries on his muzzle because he loves the tickle. And I'm just like, oh, he's my drug. He's my drug of choice. And my dog Dommy too. Gosh darn it.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Oh my goodness. Hertha, you've also published your story. May I ask you what inspired you to write it, and how has that experience impacted your mission?
Wow. I was prompted to write it while I was still in the program. It might have been in between the two courses, but I really felt like, after dying and coming back, started really listening to my heart and following it. So it was an inner prompting that I needed to write the book. And I wrote the book first about the near-death experience, and I shared it with Melissa, and she says, "Well, this is a good start." She says, "But you gotta give people a lead up to your story." And then so I wrote about the childhood so people could understand, how I got set up to have the problems that I had in my body and in my consciousness and what transpired, with the healing. So then it's a near-death experience where should I just jump into that right now?
Go ahead. Please
Okay.
do.
So I went, me overachieving and succeeding was my drug of choice. Now, my
Mm.
mom was an alcoholic, and there's a good chance I could have gone down that road, but I felt I got on a spiritual practice, and for me, drinking and doing the spiritual practice didn't coincide, and I chose the spiritual practice. But by nature, I'm set up to be some type of addict. And so I was addicted to working hard, overachieving. So in high school, I was a state champion of two sports the same year, basketball and rodeo. I played college sports, basketball and rodeo, while I was a pre-med student, while I was working myself through college. I mean, it just never ends. Yeah. And so doing that and being a lawyer, it was perfect because we're supposed to be like that to be a lawyer. They say in the law that the law is a jealous mistress. It sucks up all your life. And so for me, it fit perfect. I'll never slow down to feel, and I'll be successful. It's a marriage, of what I need to do with my life. Well, I didn't slow down to feel, and I was successful as an attorney, but I wasn't successful in life. And my body got so sick because I had all that trauma stuck in me from the childhood emotional pain and some physical abuse, but mostly it was the emotional pain that I just stuffed down. And my by 2015, after I think it's about 20 years being an attorney, um, I started having inflammation around my heart. And the doctors couldn't diagnose it. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. They figured out that it was pericarditis, but they don't know what causes pericarditis and they don't know how to treat it. So it at one time the pain was so bad, and remember I had been tough, but now the pain is so bad I'm no longer tough anymore. I call the ambulance because I couldn't the I went into shock from the pain, and they come to get me, and they can't find a vein or anything, and they take me and they work me up, but it's pericarditis. They thought maybe I was having a heart attack or something, and but they still didn't know how to treat. And so this kind of goes on and on over the fall of 2015. And by December, I've been in and out of the hospital. This is the third time I'm hospitalized. And when I go in, they don't put me in the regular floor. There's a floor that you go, there's ICU, and then there's a regular floor, and there's a floor you go when you're in between. I went immediately to that in between floor. I wasn't intubated, but I was on oxygen, and my CRP, which is a measurement of inflammation, was 197. They get nervous if it gets over 7. So I had systemic inflammation, I had pericarditis, I also had pneumonia and pleuritis, so severe inflammation in and around my lungs. Well, guess what? That's where all my pain was. It was my heart, it was sadness, and I even had absolute despair stuck inside there because I was just so sad and so hurt by what I experienced in life. I talked to God, and it's like, why would you send me here? I mean, I wanted to go home all my life. So I'm laying there one night, all hooked up and on drugs, but I think I'm pretty coherent. And I'm having a talk with God. The 2 nights before, somebody had coded and died around me, and I could see that from my room, what was happening. And so I decided I'm talking to God. It's like, well, I could die. Yes, you could. And I'm like, well, I haven't really liked it here. And I told God, it's been a shit show. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't say that to God. I felt bad, but I stuck with it. And then I felt into it, and it's like, well, I thought about who I loved, what I loved, and I thought about my husband, and it's like, he would miss me, but I thought he could get by if I left. I felt everything that it was really only my love relationships that I mattered, and I kind of laughed at myself. I said, it's true. When you're dying, you don't think about success, how much money you make, all the things you did, the cases I won, the saddles I won, none of that. it didn't matter. All it mattered was who and what I loved and loving God. And so pretty soon I decided I did want to go and I just left. I just went up, up, up. And it was in this white, gold, vast, shimmery tube of light. It was bigger than anything you can imagine. I mean, it's like bigger than the universe. It's just everything was light, gold and shimmery light. And I'm going up, and I feel like I'm a little 4-year old running to my heavenly parents' lap. I feel totally loved, totally worthy, accepted, connected, all those things. And it's like, it's feeling that when I tell you this story, I actually can feel it again and I get spirit tingles. But it's so much beyond what we can imagine in this body, in this life, until we go up there. It's really hard to put into words. So think about what you might imagine it be and multiply it by a jillion. That's the feeling of oneness and love and light. And so I'm up there and I'm really liking it. And then I'm like, I'm getting ready to see whoever my spiritual advisor is. And it's somebody I think I'm aware of. It's this teacher who's been with me. And then I was like, oh no, I could stay and I'm welcome and I'm loved, but I didn't fulfill my reason for life. I knew I hadn't done it yet in this life. And so I felt into that and I thought, I only have a nanosecond. The tables are turned because I don't have a right to come back. I could stay, in which I'd be happy staying. But my number one value is integrity. I wanted to do what I promised to do. And so I went into my gut and my heart, which is interesting because that's not usually where I go to make decisions. But I said, I made two promises. I told God, I said, I'll do whatever it takes to heal and to get into my body. I had no idea why I said that last one. And so as soon as I said that, I just kind of fall from high in the upper atmosphere right back into my body. And it was horrible. It was like crawling into a dead elk carcass laying on the interstate because my body was so sick. It was heavy, it was sick. And I go from this place and this consciousness of being light and love and whole. And now I'm back in my body that is really still sick. So I was blessed with coming back and I've been blessed with healing, but it took me 10 years in keeping my promise to embody and manifest and learn and do the healing. So I've been very earnest for the last 10 years in doing all what I promised to do and get in my body and heal. And so that is the story. Some of that is in the book. A lot of what I learned from the horses is in the book about healing. And it's kind of opens the prism. I think that part of my reason for being is to language the inner moves of healing. And I happen to language that through what I learned from horses, Mother Nature, and very practical life events so that others can find that, that pathway for their wholeness inside them. We each have a pathway to wholeness. And I really think that's why we're here, why we have a body, why we were born, is to become whole and to use life's experiences. And so each of us, has that within us. And that is what my book is about. And I share my life's experience, and it's experiential because I don't think we learn about healing or we can heal with just our heads. I think it's much more understanding the emotions. And my business is the 4 horses for wholeness, and what it is about balancing our four bodies, which is the spiritual body, the mental body, the emotional body, and the physical body. To heal, all of those bodies have to be, it's like containers for our consciousness. All of them have to be healed and kind of pulling together. And so that's the book. I published it, and we're actually it'll be coming out in the next week or two, a revised first edition. And it has my first talk that I've done, Dying to Live. The script of it is in the back, and it's got other new information, and it's coming out in audiobook. So, and that'll be in the next 2 weeks. And we're going to be doing a big push to promote it this year, which I didn't do the first time, starting in July. And it's called The Alchemy of Resilience, My Rugged Path to Wholeness.
Wow. If any of our viewers are interested in and you don't want to wait until the next revision comes out, There is a link in the description box that you can find Hertha's book and purchase it, as well as her website if you want to contact her. Thank you for that. You also offer a master class for those that are interested in going deeper. Can you tell us what that experience is like, who it's for, and what people can expect from taking that master class? And is it self-paced, live, a mix of both? And what kind of transformations you've seen in people who have taken this course? That's a lot. I can back it
Yes,
up and we can spit it out, Hertha. We want to know it all. And
you
I
got
have to
it.
mention before you answer that QR code that's floating around the screen, if you scan that, you can go directly to the masterclass link and purchase that yourself.
Yes, well, actually, it's free.
What?
Yes, it is a free masterclass. It is free content, and it is I think it's around 20 between 20 and 25 minutes long, and it's about the touchstones of transformational healing. I wanted to share that because people, I think, it's like, well, she's talking about all these things, and it's, I wanted them to be able to experience what I understand and what I teach and what I would help them experience if they come to a retreat or work with me. And so the touchstones, number one is embody presence. Number two is heal thyself. Number three is unlock imprisoned energy in the body. Number four is what you think about yourself matters. And number five is create a light-filled life, and filled with wholeness. And so those are the steps. And it actually just came out last week. I recorded it in New York City. It's a very professionally done video. I actually had to do makeup and get my hair done and had to stand in this mark and record it for like 3 hours. And at one point, I'm like, wow, and I thought this was glamorous. It's kind of like lining up 7 horses and shoeing them when I was a horseshoer. There's a lot, this is hard work. So,
Sure is.
yeah, so that is, and that's for everyone, anybody who wants to understand more about themselves and about literally the inner moves, what they could do to find their path to wholeness. And then I actually offer in that masterclass, there's a place where you can sign up for a free call with me. And that would be, it's a short call, but I would want to help people find their path to wholeness. Since I came back, I'm on a mission to spark a revolution for wholeness, one person, one heart at a time, so we can change the world to the place we dream of. Having worked in law in front of Congress, in front of state legislatures, and policy and different things, I do not believe we can fix any of our problems until we have more whole people. So
Oh,
I'm devoting my life to helping people find their wholeness.
I want to scream right now. I want to go because that's it. That's it. That's it.
Oh,
That is
one other thing. I'm going to Oxford in July to
England.
give, yes, to give a Oxford talk on what horses know about AI that most humans don't know.
Oh my gosh, we're going to have a second interview so we can find out how that went and how incredibly generous of you. That speaks volumes about what your mission is to offer this, the master class. I can't wait to go view it. I only got the QR code this morning, so I'm like, that's on my list. I got to go check that out. And then to offer a free call, short call with you to help guide people where they need to go is like so incredibly generous. Viewers, the QR code is floating around there. Scan it, take a look and a listen and reach out. Reach out. You don't have to live in pain. You really don't. Just got to take that first step. What is the one common misconception people have about working with horses in a healing context?
Well, if it's horse people, they don't necessarily give them enough. They're used to thinking of them in a certain way, and their consciousness might not be open enough to understand what the horses can do and what they want to do. And so I think that that's one thing that the higher you are on the spectrum for being a horseman, you may be the farther away from the beginner's mind and heart to be able to fully appreciate what horses can do. For people who aren't horse people, I think that they're actually easier. And one of my horses, Monk, regularly talks to the clients. And I don't have to, I tell them that sometimes I tell them he does that, but they know he's talking to them. And
Mhm.
they talk back and they receive from him. So I actually think that I teach them a little bit about, safety, where to stand and what to be aware of. But the horses will, if somebody's open in their heart, the horses will show up. And they always do. It never ceases to amaze me. And I can't imagine why. I just don't know what's going to happen. But and I am definitely always just blown away by how loving and smart and aware, the horses are.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. In your view, kind of hit on this, what makes horses uniquely equipped to partner with humans in emotional and trauma recovery work?
They're uniquely created to be able to do that and be present because of their how their nervous system. They don't have as much of a developed forebrain as we do. They do not have the ability to be dual. We have the ability, we have all this great thinking, but it also creates the ability for us to be dualistic, which is being kind of be unattached, disconnected, put things in a,
Mm.
not be authentic here and now. But horses, they do have, we both have the reptilian brain, the amygdala, but they have the I can't say hippocampus or something that helps them to be sense the here and now. So they're even more, they're created, they're a flight animal because they were prey. They could be eaten by carnivores. And so their whole safety is to be able to scan and to be aware and to be in a herd and be safe that way. So they're always looking for that, but then you add this other part of their brain that makes them more able to perceive. They know what we're feeling even when we don't. And they're not being psychic, they're not being empathic. That's part of the way that they exist in the world and stay safe. And so heart math has measured a horse's heart to emanate 5 times greater than the same measurement of a human's heart. So you have this, in Mystic's case, my big mare, she's 1,700 pounds. She's standing there being present and compassionate, fully anchored in her heart, emanating, these waves and her nervous system, but she is very aware of whether or not we're congruent. And she
Mhm.
understands her role is to help people become aware of that. I mean, sometimes I'm like, Mystic, you can don't be such a ball buster, be nice to these people. And she's like, no, no, I know my job.
You're full of crap.
Yeah. And she's very kind about it, but she is more
Mm.
aware of the soul sometimes, and I might be a little bit go light on them, but she demands that they up level. And that's they can do that, and the people, they don't feel offended by her. I mean, there's no part of her that emanates judgment or criticism or anything that's besides just being, I see you, I want to help you, and you need to know that this isn't part of you. This isn't real. So,
Mm, beautiful. Hertha, I'm going to get you out of here on this last question. Unless there's something I missed, so feel free to, interject and say, wait a minute. If someone watching this feels a pull toward equine coaching or healing, what's the one piece of advice that you would offer them as they begin this journey with equine healing?
wow, I love that question. Um, so my path, after dying and keeping my promise to do whatever it took to heal has been, really important on multiple levels. And I could say the first thing to do, if you really want to heal in your heart and you're willing to do what it takes, you will attract to you what you need to heal. I mean, I found everything I needed in Bozeman, and then I've since the initial of healing the body and my consciousness, I've gone out further, for counseling and different things. But, so the first thing I had to do was learn how to sleep. And
Mm.
I actually used medicine at first for that because it was so important. And I knew that when I promised God, I knew that when I was directed in the inner, that, this was serious. It was a serious next step, first next step. So I did what it took to heal, to sleep. I did sleep hygiene. To this day, I'm still zealous about getting enough sleep. And it was a couple years after I died and came back. One morning, I woke up and I thumped my chest and I talked to my husband. I said, I'm a championship sleeper now. And he said, You sure are. So
Oh, as a sidebar, I'm going to need to talk to you about that because that's my biggest quest in life is to get good sleep, and I don't.
everything comes from there. Without
Yes.
that, I couldn't heal at the multiple levels that the body, the nervous system, my consciousness, all of that. So then, and I had to, I had to look at the psychology. I mean, for many years of my life, I had nightmares because of the trauma. So there's all of those things that, the key indicator is sleep, but it's also so fundamental to be able to walk the earth in wholeness. So that's first and foremost. And then note that when I was attracted, when I was kind of prompted to check something out, part of me, if it was really going to be good for me, there was a part of me that was scared of it. And that was actually, it's like, so I'm aware that, fear can be a true indicator, or it could be from my inner part that knows that, I'm gonna end up changing. And not all of me is on board. My strategy and my defenses have kept me, going so far, and they're like, you know what, we've done a pretty good job. We don't really need any help. And so they would, they were very watchy. Like if you had a horse that was like, really watchy on the ground or something, my defenses and strategy were very watchy and allowing somebody to help me heal. So, but it became kind of a bullseye that if I felt that and then I did my, thought through it, you know, asked for guidance, I usually pray about things, all that to get a full picture. And if the prompting was still to go, then I would move forward. I would take courage and say, you know what, I promised God. And
Yep.
I don't, I think we should all heal before we have to die and come back and promise God. But since my number one value is integrity, I tried to keep that. And that helped me get over the hurdle multiple times. So, with the key takeaway is you do have to find a way to sleep. You will be able to attract what you need to heal, but there'll be some things that when you want to do it, it's not flighty. The inner voice is a still, small, very quiet, solid voice. It's not surfacey, it's not high, it doesn't have high energy. It's a very still, quiet, small voice. And that is really key to any inner path towards wholeness because it's putting us back in touch with who we really are on the inside, kind of coming home to ourselves.
Mhm.
But it, my there are other parts of me were like, yeah, hey, well, nah, we can't go with that. That's flaky. When that voice starts talking, it's like, okay, who's the real voice here? So it helps us become aware that, all the parts of us that our feelings aren't necessarily, real, they might not be helpful, our thoughts, and to be able to start, I almost think of it as if we had a four-horse hitch, we had the reins, that we have a part of us that's our higher self that, you know, and that's what I think horsemanship helps us get good at, is because when we're being a leader for the horse, to be a good leader for the horse, we have to be, we can't be petty, we have to be fair, we have to be kind, we have to listen, all of our senses have to be focused on, helping form a partnership with the horse to move forward. And to me, that same ability translates into having a part of me that oversees all of me and all these different parts that are, want a voice on things, and to be able to let them, sort through, but to find what's real and to say, no, I know that scares you, but I'm not sure. I think that's protection. I'm not, I'm going to take one more step towards this healing and towards what I'm going to do or this person, and I'm going to check it out. But I also know that, and I had a psychologist at that time, and she said, Hertha, if you don't like it, you can leave. And so I would always step forward, but it's like, if I don't like it, I can leave. So that gave me the courage to take the next step to experience stuff that would help me heal. I mean, I would have never sat down with Melissa if I didn't have that practice and that momentum of, I'm going to try it, and if I don't like it, I can leave. I mean, I'm not forcing, just like I'm not going to force my horse to do something. I'm not going to force me to do anything. So that allowed me to develop a relationship with, my inner parts, and to develop the leader part of me who wants to lead with love, to give that, an exercise, internal exercise of bringing all of my parts home. And that's the other thing, that when we heal, there is discomfort. It's not as bad. It's way less than the pain and everything that I was running from. But every time I would heal and let something go, then I would be like, oh, now it feels like that kept me. It was like I had an energy tangle, like even in front of my heart, that protected my heart. And when I finally did all the work to where that was kind of not there anymore, I'm like, whoa, you know, how am I going to experience life so, uncovered? Not, with this, it's almost like when we have a scab and the scab comes off, there's tender skin underneath. It takes a while to heal. And so whenever I would go to that stage, I'd be like, yeah, I'm uncomfortable. It feels weird. It doesn't feel like me. And in 21 days, I won't even remember how uncomfortable I feel right now, because the healing is a is letting go of parts of us that block our wholeness in multiple different layers, in those four bodies. It could be physical, it could be mental, emotional, and there's also potentially spiritual blocks. And when we do that, then it takes a while for us to form into the new part of us. But I can tell you that I live today in a way of being that I never thought was possible before I died and before I went through the 10 years. I mean, I feel, peace, happy. I have, like this morning, I already had a call with somebody, and, she said, I don't think I have enough money to go to retreat. And I said, well, let's do this. And I already helped her find her next step to wholeness. I love what I do. And I love the connection. I love being part of a, team of people, working together and with the horses to be able to help people find their wholeness. I mean, every day is, a day of joy. And yes, I still have struggles. I still have the law practice. I still get paid to fight. All of those things. But for the most part, and it's a practice. I mean, I had 55 years, probably only, okay, I probably didn't do it when I was a baby, 51 years of being in a modality, fight or flight, pretty much in that sympathetic system, stuck there all the time. And that's what almost killed me. And now, I still can get triggered. I can go back there, but I have awareness. I have the horses. I have, friends. I have coaches. So I spend much more and more time in the state of, the consciousness and the nervous state of being at peace and here now, and, hanging with my horses, and, so that living like that changes everything. And so that means that if I do watch the news or I hear all that, I'm much less likely to be triggered or to have stress, because of the practice I have of being here now, and living from this state of being that's, before was simply not available to me. So
Indeed. Mm-hmm. Hertha, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing such a compelling journey with us. Um, and I want to take a moment to thank our audience so much for joining us for this inspiring conversation with Hertha Lund. Her path from practicing law to partnering with horses for healing is a reminder of the powerful transformation that awaits when we listen to our inner voice. Be sure to visit the links in the description below and to learn about Hertha's work and how you can connect with her. And if you're curious about the tools that I use to grow and automate my coaching practice, check out the 3-minute demo of High Level featured in the middle of this episode. You'll find a link to your 14-day free trial right in the description. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it resonated with you. And please leave a comment below letting us know your favorite takeaway from Hertha's story. And until next time, thank you for being part of the Backyard Horse Enthusiast community.
thank